It's Lewis along with my good friend Rick Basham. We thought we'd talk a little WWE and kind of do a little podcast action because we'll be honest, the product isn't quite what it used to be. There was a time when it was must-see TV and people hung out at restaurants to watch pay-per-views. I think those days have passed. A lot of us, if you're like me, still kind of watch the major pay-per-views every year just because, and it's not hard to figure out what's going on. I saw a lot of comments just on X's page the other day because people think that WWE was over after the Attitude Era ended. And I don't know. I mean, there's a good argument there. It was certainly a stronger product then. But have you watched at all since the pandemic began and since they kind of done the format that they're in now?
Oh man, Lewis, I watched maybe a month or two up to WrestleMania 35 when they did it out of the Performance Center. And then up until then, I really hadn't paid that much attention to it. It's one of those things where a crowd, I think, makes the show, and you definitely need live bodies in there to kind of make it feel like, it's a big deal. And they don't really have that right now. But the thing is, I know they're going back on tour here soon, so it'll be fun to see fans back in the arenas again.
Yeah, I didn't watch it for a while, and a lot of it was because I haven't thought the product was very strong for a while, and I haven't had anybody that I've really gravitated towards or followed because I always like the talkers, like The Rock, obviously, and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
And those guys, and to their credit, like it was cool to see Edge come back. Like I was always a fan of Edge, but I feel like WWE has spent the last couple of years with some really good talent that they dropped the ball with and they haven't really known what to do with, and they haven't put them. I mean, I think Roman Reigns, you can finally argue, is over for the first time in the 5 or 6 years
that's true.
that he's been in the company. But I was interested to see how they would do it when everything's shut down. And I give them all the credit in the world for trying it and keeping it going because it did give people something to watch. But I'll say the first few weeks where they were just doing it with no audience and they were in their training center or whatever was awkward. It felt like you were watching a dress rehearsal, like without the crowd.
Yeah.
So strange. You could hear everything that I don't think you were always supposed to hear. And there was no energy to it whatsoever. It looked like a dress rehearsal is, I guess, a good way to describe it. So I know what you're talking about it definitely needing a live atmosphere to thrive in. And I think it got a little better with the Thunderdome, but I kind of feel like they're a little lost from a product standpoint. They don't know what they want to be. Like they were more successful when they pushed the envelope and they weren't afraid to swear a little bit and get a little R-rated. And now they're kid friendly, but I don't think that their characters are appealing enough for kids to really, because even when I was a younger kid, I always liked Stone Cold. Like he was drinking beer and swearing. I'm like, that's a guy right there, as opposed to, the good, I'm here for good, clean, wholesome fun, and I'm going to beat him. Like it just never played as well for me, but I'm curious to see. There's a lot of rumors out there that they're talking about selling it and they're priming it. They let go of a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people who just started getting either reintroduced on TV or pushed again.
Yeah, it was really weird, especially with this last round of cuts they made in particular. Like Braun Strowman is gone, which he's one of the biggest human beings I think I've ever seen in my life. And how do you not know how to push that guy? And then Aleister Black, who was just coming back on TV, kind of getting a reignited push, and all of a sudden he's one of the casualties of these cuts. And it's just weird, like timing for one, and then just the people they decided to cut were just mind-boggling to me. Like Ruby Riott, I think she's one of the most underrated stars on at least on the women's roster, and probably the roster in general. But yeah, it kind of took a lot of people, I think, by surprise. And I think the one guy that probably stands out more to me over all these guys was Andrade. I think he was probably the most talented dude, and he just wasn't utilized well. But now he's on AEW, so that'll be interesting to see how he gets pushed, used, and he'll ever win a big time title. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on a lot of the guys you let go of. I don't think they necessarily package their talent anymore the right way. And I don't know if, like, I mean, Vince made billions of dollars, so I will not say the old man doesn't know what he's doing. But I do wonder if the old man is a little bit out of touch. And they said that a lot of the budget cuts have been due to budget. But during the pandemic, because they've been off the road and they haven't had to set that ring up in 52 different cities a year, they have been making record amounts of money with everything that's going on. And it was weird because there was a big push for the WWE network, which I bought the network. I think I probably have watched a total of about maybe 25 hours since I bought it, because I just watched the pay-per-view. But I thought their price point was good, because for people like me who watch the 4 major pay-per-views a year at $10 a month or $8 a month or whatever it was cheaper for me to buy the network every month than it would have been for me to just buy the 4 pay-per-views a year that I would have bought. So it made, from a financial standpoint, their price point was good. But now they've sold all their content to NBC. So the rumor is NBC is going to buy it, which I don't know, how that plays or what that's going to do. I mean, it's weird. And then where does that leave, like, your Triple H and your Stephanie, who everybody thought, there's your heir apparent, when Vince finally decides, I'm too old for this, and walks away. But I don't know what they're going to do if NBC buys it. That'll be a really interesting, aspect.
Yeah, and the fact too that they're not just on the NBC networks like USA with Raw and I believe with NXT. They're on Fox, which is direct competitor, which to me is kind of strange and will leave me wondering what they're going to do with that show. I don't know what their contract situation is like with Fox, but I would imagine they're in pretty deep if they're on, main time slot Friday nights, 8 o'clock to 10 or whatever. But that'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. And you talked about saving money too. I mean, it wasn't just those 52 weeks a year for television, all those house shows too. Like, they didn't have to go to all those other arenas outside of the ones on Monday and Friday and some Sundays for pay-per-views, but they saved a ton of money just not doing house shows.
Oh yeah. Well, not to mention, I think the way it works, and I don't know, I've interviewed a couple of them, and I always keep meaning to ask this question, and I never do. I think, like, your top tier guys get a lot of their travel covered. So you're paying the freight for a lot of those guys. And I think you make your undercard, they pretty much have to get in the rental car. And I think I think I was doing an interview with Natalia once, and she explained to it where if the next city they go to is within a certain amount of hours driving wise, they have to get a rental car and go. And that's part of it. And they cover that themselves. So, like, I don't know if WWE reimburses them or how that works, but yes, I mean, you're cutting down on a lot of travel. You're cutting down on a lot of just expenses in general. But I'm curious to see what'll happen with everything, with where they're going to go with it and what they're going to do, because does NBC take it in a more aggressive direction, or do they turn around and make it more kid-friendly and potentially make it worse?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? And it's something I really hadn't thought of before, but I'd have to imagine they'll probably end up, I don't want to believe this, but I think they might end up sanitizing it even more and probably making it even more kid-friendly, which is unfortunate. These days, you kind of have to have some kind of edge for me to be at least partially invested. And it's not really doing it for me, to be honest with you right now.
Yeah, there's part of me that wants to believe, and I'm kind of like you. I haven't been. If there's nothing else that catches my attention, I'll pop in just to see what's going on, and then I pop back out. Like, it doesn't hook me for a long amount of time. But what I am interested to see, there's a lot of rumor that they're saving your return of your Edges and your Brock Lesnar's and all that for when they get back in front of a live crowd, so they can get that reaction and so they can get the ticket. I mean, if you're going to pay someone like Lesnar $2 or $3 million a year, you need that house money where people are paying for tickets in giant arenas to come see it every week to front that bill. Otherwise, you're going to start bleeding money. You can't have, 10 guys on your roster all making $2 million a year. All of a sudden, you're just shelling out money left and right and not getting as much.
Yeah, especially with Brock, you're only getting probably 6, maybe 7 big time matches a year, and probably not even that. I would say probably closer to 4 or 5 if I had to guess. But he's that big money draw though that I think a lot of people are wanting. I heard Cena is kind of rumored to be on the return as well, which that'll be fun.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Cena back, if for nothing else, to boost his audience, because Cena, over the last couple of weeks, if you hadn't heard, he made a mistake and he ticked off Taiwan and China and then apologized for it. And then you had a group of people that were like, how could you piss off another country? But then you had another group of people that were like, dude, you shouldn't have apologized for that. So I wonder if, because he's got the movie career going, if he comes back just to kind of go, hey, I'm here. Because, I mean, what people don't realize about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, The Rock had a built-in audience for his movies before he even got to the level he was at now. He had a built-in audience. All he had to do is come back one night and cut a promo and deliver a rock bottom. And all of a sudden, everybody who watched WWE was like, I'm going to go see The Rock's movie this weekend. If Cena's smart, he'll do the same thing. It is kind of funny, though, now to watch Cena, who did nothing but tell The Rock he was a part-timer. And now Cena comes in and goes, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to put my body through the hell that I put my body through? I can make more money? Okay. Maybe Dwayne had this right the entire time.
It's crazy how that thing kind of comes full circle in a sense.
It is. So I'll be interested to see.
Great.
I will definitely interested to see where it goes, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it and discuss it in further length. But there's a couple of pay-per-views. When's the next pay-per-view? Is what, 2 weeks away? I think you said Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. Yes, Hell in a Cell on June 20th. So 2 weeks from this past Sunday. Yes.
Is that Father's Day weekend?
It is.
All right.
A lot of things going on Father's Day weekend. You got the U.S. Open for golf. You got NASCAR races, IndyCar, and a whole bunch of stuff.
Sounds good. So we will let you dwell on this. Feel free to leave a couple of comments. Let us know what your opinion of the overall WWE product, if you're still watching it. And again, I would completely understand if you were like, dude, I stopped watching that 2 years ago, because it hasn't been very good. But I think next time we convene, we'll convene once to preview SummerSlam and see what we like and what we don't and what matches are coming up. And then we'll convene again after SummerSlam and discuss the events of said pay-per-view and see if it was worth punching back in and see where we go from here.
That sounds like a plan. I like that.
Sounds good. He's Rick Basham. I'm Lewis. Catch us on Indies Rock Station 93.9X.